Tell me a bit.
Pete Richards.
All right, where are you from?
London.
I'm from London as well.
I'm from London. How did you end up on boats?
My dad raised me on yachts most of my life growing up. I've always had a passion for the sea, and it just came to that point in my life where I had, no connections back home in England, and it was time to buy a boat and really just fulfill one of my lifelong dreams.
You?
Pretty much the same, but I've been coming to Malta for the last 30 years. I used to walk along Salima Marina and dream of owning my own boat here and sailing it in Malta, and my dreams have just become more exaggerated, and I now want to sail around the world, across the Atlantic, and see where I go from there.
Right.
Really, it's not,
I have exactly the same thing. I've been, always told superstitiously not to say I'm going around the world, but just let's see how far I can get. Let's see how far I can get before everything just drowns, sinks, and I run out of money.
And then the most stupid thing I did was get in my dinghy at night in Portugal, and then proceeded to get run over by a water taxi and spent a couple of days in hospital. So that's the stupidest, dumbest thing I've done.
How close to actually dying do you think you came that night?
I honestly, within an inch, because the outboard that was on the back of this taxi boat was 150 horsepower, and literally from the top of my shoulder blades down to the back of my car from one side was just completely bruised and red and black, and it actually ripped my shorts off. It literally ripped my shorts off, and when the guy, it luckily stopped the engine so quickly, and luckily, or not so luckily for him, he said, "I help you get out the boat, onto the boat." And I said to him, "But I can't, I'm stuck in the propeller." And he turned right, and he thought that I was actually mangled in the propeller, but it was literally my shorts that were caught in the propeller, and I had to, what was left of them, rip them off and climb on his boat, basically with a t-shirt on and no shorts on. And that was a very scary time. And yes, I believe that I would have, if I wouldn't have died, I would have lost a limb for sure.
Yeah.
I didn't lose a limb. I mean, I had a 3-inch gash on the back of my knee like that. Luckily it wasn't deep, but you could actually see where the propeller had sort of skirted down.
Right.
Oh, that was a real eye opener that I think some people would have gone, this life ain't for me, and park the boat up, get back on a plane, but I'm just not one of them people.
No.
But it was, at the time, it took me about 6 weeks to actually be able to get in a dinghy at night and cross a small body of water before I got comfortable again. If I would have been sitting actually on the sea, I probably would have been dead, because it slashed my dinghy right where the seat was on the inflatable on one side. My biggest mistake was not having a light, because I assumed that, if you're in an anchorage like this place at night, nobody zooms about. There is a strict speed limit, so you can move about even without a light and know that you will be safe. But it's still prudent to make yourself as visible as possible, really.
Where do you see yourselves in 10 years?
Exactly what I'm doing now, sitting here drinking beer, in a sunny place, not necessarily in Malta.
Same thing, different location.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think 10 years time I should, if I'm lucky and I'm well organised, be around, the Asias, Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, in that kind of time frame. Pretty much doing the same thing.
What boat do you have?
I have a Bavaria 1060. It was built in 1986. So it's a sailing yacht.
I have a Trident Warrior 35 centre cockpit. I consider it the 4x4 of the sea. Great little boat, very sturdy, long keel, go anywhere. Great boats. The Med, it's warm. There's plenty of anchorages. You're never that far away from land when you put it into perspective of the Atlantic. So you're never from Malta. It's 4 days in any direction, and you hit another bit of land. So it's relatively safe to, as much as the sea can be safe. It's relatively safe to come here, hone your sailing skills. It's a nice proving ground for that, and it's relatively cheap. You get to find beautiful anchorages. You get to meet the most amazing people that are on a very similar journey, and you just cross paths with them. You make some friends, you make some acquaintances, but generally it's really nice for, I think, cruising. If your sailing skills are not, or you're not willing to challenge yourself to an Atlantic crossing, but it's just, the beer's cheap, the water's blue.
I think my only gripe with the Med is because of Brexit now, being an Englishman with an English passport, I can only spend 90 days out of every 180. It makes the shuffle a lot more difficult for me because when you do a little bit more research, you go to Turkey, you're going to be paying hundreds of euros a month. You go to Tunisia, you're not allowed to anchor. It's illegal, you have to use a marina. That really leaves you places like Albania or Montenegro, which also have charges for entering. So it makes it a lot more difficult for non-EU people to stay on a long-term basis. Before Brexit, honestly, my original plan would be to spend 4 or 5 years in the Med. Now I'm down to a year, and I need to get out because I just can't afford to go into marinas every 90 days or travel in the wrong direction because it's the only place which isn't part of Europe.
Malta is one of them countries that are very forgiving, let's say.
Yeah. Thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, without Malta, the Med would be, a bit of a nightmare. I'd be constantly moving.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised how Malta isn't much more of a mecca for sailing, considering it's pretty much in the middle of the Mediterranean. And as I say, 3-4 days in any direction. Croatia,
I thought
Albania.
It was a mecca. I mean, I'm newer to sailing than you are, but I'm a big researcher, and every website, every book will say that Malta is the mecca, especially for non-EU, because they're quite obviously famous for stamping your crew list.
Like Greece, sometimes in Greece, you're fighting. Boats are parking 3 meters from you. You're all fighting and jostling for spaces, whereas here, it's not that bad. I mean, in the height of summer with the locals, with their small cruisers, they will raft up. One will drop anchor, and then they will raft up 3, 4, 5 boats and just spend the weekend just sitting, eating, drinking, have the weekend, and then go back to work Monday. Which is really and truly, it's a beautiful lifestyle. Why wouldn't you want to do that?
Well, I came here from Corfu, and I originally intended to only spend 2 or 3 weeks here. And I met Tony and yourself and Ed, and I ended up staying about almost 6 weeks. And then took a trip over to Tunisia, got my anti-fouling and priming done on the whole of the boat, got a new spray hood, got a few repairs done, almost quarter the price of the rest of Europe's charges. And it was a fantastic country to go to, you know, as being a part of Africa. The prices were ridiculously cheap. I could have stayed there longer quite happily. You know, they were around 40 cents for a kilo of onions or tomatoes. It was just as cheap to eat in a restaurant as it was to go to a supermarket. So yeah, fabulous place. And then last week came back here. And again, I enjoyed the company of everyone so much. I thought I'd come here for a month before going straight to Sicily, which was going to be my original plan. But yeah, you guys were such fun. I was like, I might as well just stop off in Malta for a month or two before I start making my slow move towards Cape Verde for the November-ish.
There's a story that somebody told me recently, and there was these big super yachts, blue water yachts in a marina, and this little boat turned up, and they were all looking down their nose at it and saying, you know, oh, that's not a blue water cruiser. And the guy was actually sitting in the bar, and he walked up to him and he said, there's no such thing as a blue water boat, it's a blue water sailor. And that's actually the key of it, is, you know, people have crossed the Atlantic in tiny boats, they row across the Atlantic. You can do the Atlantic whatever way you want. And last year there was the challenge to a guy set out in a 1.2 metre sailing boat.
My idea across the Atlantic would be like a 787 or an Airbus.
Yeah, but then there's no challenge.
There's
to
no
that.
fun or challenge.
Oh, I don't know. Gatwick Airport.
Well, that's true. That is true.
It's its own challenge.
I think the big difference is that you're taking your home with you.
Yeah.
You know, you're going on a holiday. I'm moving my home to that place, and we'll be staying there for as long as I please.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, the point is we're not just going across the Atlantic. We're moving our home to a whole different destination. You know, and it's not just the Caribbean. You've got Cuba, Jamaica, Colombia, Costa Rica, even America if you wish, Belize, Cayman Islands. There's so many different choices to go to, and then from there, what do? Do you know, go up to Canada? Do you go down to Argentina around the Magellan Straits? Do you go across Panama? Or you can do what I do, is I'm going to come back to the Med and go through the Suez Canal and then down through to India there, because it's quite frankly cheaper.
Do you think there's a degree of I don't give a fuck anymore, I'm old, and if I die, whatever?
Well, I'd rather die doing something that I want to do.
Yeah.
Rather than, you know, spending 50-60% of my wages on a crappy one-bedroom flat in London, you know, working, you know, for somebody else so they can make lots of money. I'd rather do what I'm doing now, living pretty much hand to mouth. You know, I rely on getting crew on board, and it's the small kind of stipend of money that I get from them which sustains me.
This is a centre cockpit. I don't have to leave this cockpit.
No.
To adjust any of the sails.
Yeah.
I can do everything apart from the spinnaker.
Yeah, I think the scary bit is if something goes wrong up there, and then you've got to go there, and you've got no choice. And
Yeah, well, I've got jack stays, so you know, you clip on,
yeah.
get to the wherever you need to go. But I'm a scaffolder, so for me it's the same as scaffolding. You know, you're walking around on stuff that's not completely built and not completely solid, and you learn to have a very strong grip.
What did you do before you came out here?
Most of my life I worked for charity, so I worked for the RSPCA.
Me too. Mine was the charity though.
Yeah, and then after that, a company called Cards for Good Courses, where I worked in Sloane Square in Chelsea.
Posh.
But I've always preferred working for charities. You know, I know where the money's going. I know it's going for a good cause.
Right.
So yeah, it's always been a passion that I've always tried to work for.
You have to clean the bottom of the boat as well, apparently.
You know, the other day when you missed your mouth,
Yeah.
I just missed my mouth.
He just missed
It's
his
that
leg.
effect you have on people, Steve.
I did, I missed my mouth.
Steve just sits there.
There's
and
going to be a big stain here down now where I just totally missed my mouth. It's who you want to meet. I think the people that you meet when you're a Liverpool are other Liverpools that have similar interests to you. They do the same thing. So I think, you know, I come from London. It's a population of 25 million, and it's the loneliest place to live in the world. You know, you try to say hello to someone where I live, you know, in Enfield, and their answer would be, "What's your problem?" You know, where over here I can bowl up on a dinghy to any of these boats and say, "Hi, I'm Pete. You know, I come from England," and they'll happily have a half-hour chat with me. You know, so I disagree with that. I think that there isn't, for me personally, any disadvantage to living on a boat. I don't get lonely. You know, I enjoy my own company. You know, I have TVs and movies on my boat on a hard drive if I need it. As you can see in the background, there's bars all the way along the coastline that we can pop to. We're on Tony's boat right now, who has a fantastic barbecue at the back, which we'll happily abuse if he wants us to use it or not on a frequent basis. You know, I think I
heard he can cook.
Yeah, I turned up 4 or 5 days ago just with sausages and a baguette, raw sausages and a baguette with "Good morning, cook these."
The French are lovely. I like the French.
They were
I think
really
they're
friendly.
very friendly people.
Yeah.
I mean, I cycled through France, and I was sitting on the side of a dual carriageway, and I literally had nothing left in my legs, and I was walking for 10 metres, and I couldn't walk anymore, and then I'd get on the bike and I'd ride for 20 metres, and I couldn't ride anymore, and I'd get on and off, and I was just sitting at the side of the road contemplating, it looks like I'm going to be camping here tonight by the side of the road, because I just didn't have the energy left in my legs. And this Serge, his name was, he turned up. He's like, "You have a problem?" I said, "No." I said, "My legs are finished. I just can't cycle anymore." "No problem." Picks the bike up, throws it in the back of his car. He's like, "You've gone with me."
Have you ever kicked anyone off your boat? Actually kicked anyone off your boat?
I've not actually kicked anybody off, but I have threatened to throw somebody off the boat mid-journey.